All right. Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our upcoming discussion. I'm so glad to be back at the GenAI Summit. My name is Pavlos Konstas. I'm a John F. Kennedy Fellow at Harvard University and an associate partner with IBM Consulting's enterprise strategy practice in the UK. I'm excited to chair this panel. It's going hopefully to show how transformative generative AI can be in achieving today's most pressing environmental challenges. GenAI has proven to be much more than content creation. There are now cases that have revolutionized industries, from streamlining opaque processes to how we use energy, to how we harness data to report on environmental goals. Today, hopefully, we'll be able to show some actionable insights as well as real-world applications of GenAI in the field. That's why I am super honored to be joined by this panel of experts that each of them brings a wealth of experience as well as unique viewpoints from the world of digital product innovation to bioeconomics to finance. So without further ado, and I will start from left to right, I would like to welcome Professor Phoebe Koundouri, Professor of Economics at the Athens University of Economics and Business, Chair of the World Council of Environmental and Natural Resource Economists Association, EU representative at the G20 Bioclimatic Task Force, and many, many other roles and responsibilities that she has. Marisa Fotiu, Vice President of Digital Product Management at BP, as well as founder of Curious IQ. And Adonis Sagris, Senior Director of Corporate Development and ESG at Piraeus Bank. So let me start with a realization, first of all, because we have been talking about GenAI a lot, particularly the past 2 years, when it became more commercially available. However, AI and generative AI and AI generally, it's part of machine learning, which we have been using for a while. We have been using for a while in data analytics. We have been using it for a while in digital twinning and facilities monitoring. So why do we actually believe GenAI is a game changer here? And perhaps, from your experience, what are the flagship use cases that make GenAI the catalyst to enhance, influence, or even accelerate sustainability goals? And I know Phoebe, we'll start with Phoebe because she has a couple of slides she wants to share, and then we'll move into more of a free-floating conversation.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here. So I'm leading the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on Sustainability. You can see the slides with the different institutions, research and innovation centers, innovation accelerators, science policy networks, and scientific associations and academy. I'm bringing all of them together under my capacity of leading these different institutions. And there you can see how much is involved in order to be able to create impact. What we do is trying to support sustainability transition. This means quantifying where you are today and developing optimal mixtures of policies, technologies, and fiscal and financial instruments that will get you where you want to go. And this involves a lot of data, a lot of models, a lot of institutions, a lot of outputs, a lot of tools to support the implementation of the outputs. It is really complicated. The policy framework is complicated, and there you can see in this slide, which you don't have to go through, obviously, but just to see how the only global agenda, which is the UN the UN Agenda for 2030, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the 169 targets within them, how it connects with all other regional policy frameworks framework. This is a connection with the European Green Deal, and there we have a deep neural network machine learning approach to finding the connection. Unless you find the connection, you cannot connect the regional policies with the global policies. So here we connect the SDG, the global policy, with the regional policies, which is the European Green Deal. We did similar work on the US policy, on the Australian policy, on the African policy. It's really very hectic, data hectic, science hectic, and generative AI is useful. And another showcase example that is crucial, and I just want to go through it very quickly. I lead the United Nations Global Climate Hub, which is basically putting together all you need in order to construct implementable pathways towards climate neutrality and climate resilience. And we do this for each and every country in the world. 120 countries we work now, we need to go to 200 countries. And for this, you need 3 layers. The first layer is the systems analysis, climate system, land use system, marine use system, energy system, transport system, health system, innovation system, and embedding everything in socioeconomic systems. Then you need to co-design all these transition pathways with the stakeholders. The stakeholders that need to be empowered and trained and given knowledge, but also given space to co-design, co-own, and become shareholder of the transition. And to do all this, you really need a lot of data, a lot of models, and a lot of outputs, and a lot of tools. And to create the connections between them, the equations that connect the different parts, but also the data that is missing, generative AI is a godsend tool. So in closing, let me just say advanced data processing, predictive modeling, optimization with new content creation in all these aspects is crucial in order to be able to say even the first word for the sustainability transition. Thank you.
Awesome. Marisa, what is your take?
Thank you, Pablo. I want to touch on the energy sector. And you mentioned earlier that machine learning has been used in the industry for quite some time. It's over a decade now. And we've seen real-life applications on different areas across the sector. So it could be used, for example, to identify where to locate an EV charger. It can be used to do accurate forecasting, to have more optimized processes in the renewable side of solar and wind. We see it in process optimization. Phoebe earlier showed us a slide with a digital twin, which is the biggest use case there is predictive analytics. And we use that to do predictive maintenance on platforms and send engineers to prevent a corrosion, let's say, in a system that could cause massive loss of production in the hydrocarbon space. And of course, not to mention, the more generative AI side of things that we see today, which is on the day-to-day office use around, documents, summarization or meetings, summaries and things like mundane tasks that people spend a lot of time doing that using generative AI, they can accelerate and speed up and do something more productive. So yeah, I think it's really vast. It helps companies resource manage better and ultimately reduce their carbon emissions as a result of this advanced analytics that they can produce by managing also, let's say, for example, having less test centers, test environments, things of that nature. And we can talk more about this later.
Awesome. Andoni?
Delighted to be here. I'm a fan of all of you. Love the chairs. The chairs are amazing. Well, these technologies are going with an overwhelming pace. As you said, they're not new in one sense, but of course they're very compelling because they they can have we can explore productivity efficiencies, risk assessments, and various things. We mentioned the energy sector is very crucial, in terms of consumption, generation, and the way the grid is using them. Agriculture is another sense. We are being a financial institution with a credit provider, let's say, of various sectors, so we see these practices. In agriculture, we see a very trendy matter regarding precise agriculture, where AI comes and kind of manages the resources in a sense and gives that information to the farmer, and they can increase their productivity by 30 to 40%. It's amazing when you see it in very small farms. So you see it in big industries, you see the applications in small industries. In banking, it's different because we try to exploit these assistive, let's say, technology in the sense of giving the information to our customer and clients in order to make well-established decisions, either investments or to be assisted in doing their banking. Our main concern is basically in assessing risk and impacts from climate change. Yep. It's like we're an observatory now with a financial hat as well. Collecting the data, analyzing the data, and producing, let's say, predictive models that we can see the situation of the impact of climate change in 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years' time is quite amazing.
I mean, it's the best passing point you could have given me, because first of all, I strongly believe that the primary sector is in need of reform, and generative AI will be a catalyst from farming, but all the way from food processing, transportation, and distribution, which is a very opaque process right now, and it leads to enormous food waste, and not only in the States, which I think is leading by example, a bad example, unfortunately, but also in Europe. So I want to pick up on a point that a couple of you made, and I mentioned it at the beginning that content creation is great, and yes, there are a lot of day-to-day office uses of GenAI that makes us more productive, that we spend less time on strenuous, low fidelity tasks. But GenAI, when we talk about digital product management, and it is my belief that when we talk about achieving sustainability targets, it will be primarily through digital tools and products. GenAI has been a catalyst to a number of areas, such as testing requirements, gathering, user persona mapping. I know for a fact in IBM we've been using this, our new platform, the Consulting Advantage, where basically you have consultants that they converse with LLMs that bring the collective experience of thousands of people, as opposed to just their small team. So in that digital world, what do you think is GenAI's impact in product development? How has it affected, and how has it affected its environmental footprint, as well as the organizations that commission the development? Because that's the important bit, and I would like to start with Marisa, and then again, let's have a conversation on it.
Yeah, I think we've already started to see the impact, as you're probably hearing or seeing from your work. There are a ton of open source tools out there already, right? And both developers and product managers starting to use them. And the uses are actually across the whole product lifecycle. We see product managers using them from producing documents or product requirements documents, helping them refine their requirements in a more accurate way, making sure they don't create ultimately products that customers don't need. And that saves them a lot of time. And again, back to the resource management, you can accelerate the work. We've seen developers using it to ensure that they automate testing, or they have the tool facilitate the testing. Again, that has a number of benefits. It can firstly minimize the number of testing environments, which leads to lower carbon emissions. user mapping. It's just so many different uses that we see today, but there's a catch. Because as computational power increases, companies need even more data storage space. And we already seen in the US some of the major tech companies that they're starting to sign deals with nuclear data centers in order to reduce, or let's say offset for now, because the data storage demand is going up. So how do you offset your carbon emissions? And nuclear is something that they've shown interest. So yeah, I think it's a space that we're going to see increasing, in my opinion. So yeah, one to watch for sure.
Absolutely. Phoebe, what is your take?
Yes. First of all, let me just say that the sustainability transition is not just about the environmental footprint. It's transposed and very clearly and explicitly defined in 17 goals. 4 of them are about the environment, and it is important. 8 of them are about the society. So having the ability not just to understand Earth systems and what can support their resilience, but also understand the society. So you can see how natural language models are huge in this transition. 8 of the 17 goals are about the sustainability of the society. And then another 4 about the sustainability of economy. Economy is a very complex system, a very endogenous system, and generative AI is, again, crucial there in collecting and creating information, and not just information, but understanding of patterns that are very difficult to understand because they are extremely dynamic and extremely endogenous. By the time you have the information has already affected the system, and the system is responding to that information. Now, to make it a bit more explicit for the companies, when we try, and the last goal, of course, is collaboration, right? 17 goals. 4 for the environment, 8 for the society, 4 for the economy, and the last one is collaboration and coordination among all the different stakeholders, the policymakers, the politicians, the NGOs, the civil society, the financial institutions, the scientists, the technology developers, and of course the businesses. Now, to focus it a bit, this is what we do with businesses. Businesses, at least in Europe, but in other places in the world, they have to report according to their sustainability transition. So we have the EU taxonomy. Within that taxonomy, we have the corporate sustainability reporting. Now, in order to be able to use this law, this regulation, to transform your business and be able to create value and additional profit towards this transformation, you really need to have tools that are based on AI, not only that, but also AI and generative AI. There are 3 steps into that. Mapping in a very detailed way the value chain of your products and services, everything from suppliers to production to logistics to footprints on the environment, on the society, on governance, and importantly, on profits. This is a wealth of opportunity. The sustainability transition has a wealth of opportunity for reducing your costs, for increasing your market share, and for transforming in order to create additional value and additional profits. So you create the value chain, you understand the value chain, and you identify which are the important issues for the company and your stakeholders. This is the materiality assessment. In the second stage, you measure. You measure with KPIs across ESG, but also all the SDGs that include the financials there. And once you measure, then you create a continuous structure and tools using data from sensors, from satellite, for in situ, in order to continually monitoring and assess and refine the business model of your company in order to give the sustainability report accurately, but also identify immediately profitable opportunities to make profit. And this is the last bit, assessing and monitoring. And this is about products and services as well, but also what happens in the stock exchange.
Adoni, before, I would love to hear your view, and also, what I pick up from Marisa's and Phoebe's comments is we have hyper availability of data, right? And it's so easy now to use GenAI tools to actually develop reports faster, product requirements, product specs, product roadmaps. And then the counterpart is going to use GenAI to actually read the product specs because nobody wants to read the... So is it actually, what is that quid pro quo like in the space? Will we have like GenAI models developing product specs and then GenAI models reviewing product specs and giving the thumbs up and then continue the product development? So it would be good to understand to get your view on that as well, but also how do you think digital product positioning actually helps us in the sustainable terrain?
AI is getting into a very flashy, let's say, uses in productivity, in the movie industry, in various industries. I think we have a unique opportunity to improve any system we have. We have a nice tool, a very amazing tool, that can we improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of any other system. Now, there is a counterbalance. We saw, it might offset, it might outrail, let's say, our carbon reduction, our CO2 carbon reduction. It might produce a little bit more energy, more, let's say, infrastructure. That's a balance that we have to see. We have to be honest with ourselves and, be clear-eyed and heads-on all these imbalances. There has to be a solution. But I think we have a unique opportunity in terms of capacity to do these effective things a lot better than we did before.
It does make sense, and also I'll pick up on Marisa's point, which was very much that the programming and data science has become a playing field that actually is more accessible. Either because you can train like a very seasoned data scientist in domain expertise to actually know why they're building what they're building with the use of LLMs, or having a novice programmer actually having almost like a digital buddy to show them the ropes and to showcase how to code better, how to do defect mapping better, etc. So what do you think that means in terms of availability of knowledge, and how is that cascades perhaps to the SME sector, the small and medium enterprises? How would governments need to leverage that? How would large organizations need to leverage that? We have knowledge that is easily accessible right now on core skills that are critical in product development to meet our sustainability goals. So what is your take on that?
It's a nice point because we've been seeing, emerging new competencies, let's say, in the market. A lot of people talk about it. They talk about a synthesizing mind. Gartner did a book on it. Synthesizing mind is the capacity of collecting a big amount of data, being able to reflect on it, structure them in a way that's useful to you, and if you're lucky, they're useful to other people as well. Now, a synthesizing mind also gives some input to creative minds, innovation, and things like that. It's asking the right questions and asking them the right, not the right way, but knowing why you're asking them, which is quite important. So these type of new competencies are becoming more and more important. It's not, maybe a couple of years ago, a programmer or a data analyst had more structured their silo. and their knowledge. More or less, the challenges of any job at this point are the same. You have to be able to address various challenges. Us as bankers, we never address, let's say, climate change. Now we're upon that challenge, let's say. So, it's an evolving thing. It's something continuous. Now, regarding the second part of your questions on SMEs, is what we said a little bit earlier, is structuring that amount of data in a way that's useful to others. So if you provide, let's say, to a farmer, let's say, tool that can he can schedule when to water his farm or his agriculture, or when to feed his animals, it would be quite important.
Mm-hmm. Marisa, what do you think?
Just to add on what Adonis just mentioned, I think evolving into this stage where this becomes core skill of any company, and you talk about SMEs, and we know how sometimes they struggle with funding to actually hire people in these more niche skills, right? And even appreciate the need for data analytics in their company. Especially in Greece. So I think the government can really help here and make and give actually, let's say, tax incentives to SMEs by providing, by actually promoting the use of these technologies so they can then hire the people, employability will go up, and then they can have the benefits of these technologies. And the other thing they can obviously do is fund training programs that can help upskill people in whether this is data science or programming and advance in that way. But I really believe no matter how trained, how immense minds we have working on these things, unless the companies adopt an experimentation mindset, AI cannot really work, because it's not a case of, okay, we build it, it works, right? We need to really test, iterate, drop, test, iterate, drop, until we actually end up with a product that adds value. So that's critical, and it's really hard for smaller companies.
I mean, tolerance, risk tolerance in SMEs is lower, right? Like they cannot test with the same frequency or length that big corporates do. And hopefully, there will be many members, including of the Greek government today, including the Prime Minister. Hopefully, we will hear more about initiatives that they run in that space. So, Phoebe, you have been in the inner circle. You have been in these rooms, these multilateral, negotiations, etc., especially at the government collaboration level. What do you think, that means, that this easy knowledge, this ability to make this, hopefully, to make decisions faster. And I say that with a caveat that I know that in the past COPs there have been a stalemate many times that has been saved at the last minute, like it happened last year in the UAE. So I would love to hear your views on that.
Yes. Okay, let me make 3 points. First of all, we have lots of data compared to the past. We don't have enough data. And in this space, for example, this Global Climate Hub, this is just an example. There are many countries with low level of data, and especially in earth sciences, there are some spaces when you're talking about marine resources, when you're talking about land use resources, when you're talking about water resources, when you're talking about climate, where you need additional data, and generative AI can create it. This is important. And it can also create connections through equation recovery and equation creation between the different systems that are important in order to give your analytics. The first point in this. The second point is that we need open science, open data. It's crucial. Science is not open yet. And science has lots of data and usable data. So it is important not just to have data, but this data has the characteristics that can be consistently used over time and space and can also play through the different scales from global to local, because some problems can be solved locally, like adaptation, for example, to climate, floods, forest fires, heat waves. You need real local scale. But for mitigation, you need a global scale, a regional scale. So you need to be able to play around these data sources, these patterns, and you need to be able to really convey the information with capacity. And this is the most important thing, capacity. Now, let me say two things on that. I just came back from COP, and we presented a report that showcases that 85% of the skills that are needed for the green and digital transition in Europe, let alone the other parts of the world, in Europe, 85% of the skills for the green and digital transition are not in the labor market. How on earth are we going to implement this transition by 2030 and 2040 and 2050 if the people in the workforce do not have the skills to implement it? There is no way. So this is why we need a serious wave of upskilling and reskilling the labor force, a serious wave of investment, which has to come from the public, but also from the private sector in very smooth public-private partnerships. And in addition to this, a serious effort by the education institutions, and I take responsibility for that, to revise the curricula in order to reflect these skills needs. And of course, revising curricula will not create the labor force tomorrow, but it will create the right labor force in 5 years. So first, upskilling, reskilling, and revising the curricula for the future in a continuous learning approach. Finally, multilateral institutions. Huge need for upskilling and reskilling the politicians and the policy makers and the heads and the personnel of the multilateral institutions. The IMF, the World Bank, the EIB, the African Bank, they are all around a table saying that we don't yet have the capacity to process all this. So we really need to understand that, yes, it's a powerful tool. Yes, it can give us a lot of information and structure. Yes, it can bring together the stakeholders, but only if we have the maturity to use it correct through knowledge and skills development.
Makes sense. I want a quick comment from all of you, because you mentioned an important point, Phoebe, that there are different types of data, and now GenAI can help us make data, can also help us make the wrong data.
Oh, yes.
So I would like a quick comment on what do you think the guardrails should be so that we have responsible data production, responsible AI when it comes to, particularly when it comes to help us mitigate climate, the climate crisis we're in. So Marisa, a quick comment on that?
Definitely a data readiness. We cannot have AI without the right data. And when we talk about data readiness, we talk about governance, literacy, integrations, how accessible the data is and so on. And many companies don't appreciate that. You mentioned something earlier, you said, so what does that mean? We're going to have ChatGPT or whatever, GenAI tool, let's not market here, preparing features or testing code, and then another ChatGPT doing the same on the other side. Well, if the data wasn't right to begin with, then guess what the output is going to be? So that's definitely the first one. And the second one, I think, and it's starting to evolve, is having some policies around AI. Not just the ethical part, which I think it's huge, but also the more practical side of things. So this would be my two.
Awesome. Adoni?
We mentioned collaboration between official sector and the public sector and the private sector. I think business can be an engine of sustainable growth and not only economic growth. And I think sustainable issues like inequality or sustainable financing, climate change can be part of doing business. So I think that would bring the balance that we're looking at. And I think with AI, things are possible in the sense of becoming more effective at it.
Awesome. We are at time, so we'd like to thank you very much for the vibrant discussion. Thank you for participating, and looking forward to the next panels.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.